Our book is the Best Little Girl in the World by Stephen Levi-Cron. I can't say the last names like always, but yeah.
Okay, so my first question is, why do you think the author included details about Kessa leaving pee stains due to not wanting to sit on the toilet seat?
I feel like that was kind of like a. I wouldn't. I feel like the best way to explain it is an excuse for her. I guess
That was in the part where she was talking to a doctor, right? Did you see that as a metaphor, or is that a different part of the book? Because I know, like, urine.
yeah.
Multiple.
This was like in the beginning when she was like first kind of struggling, and it was like when they first saw Dr. Smith, I think.
I'm not really sure.
I think it was also talking about like her control, like she was doing it intentionally, like not eating. She was intentionally not eating.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think the author chose the last name Diet Rich? This one like really caught my attention because like the first half of the last name is Diet, and that's kind of
I
the
feel
whole
like
story.
Yeah, I feel like it's because it's supposed to be like it's supposed to be relating to what's actually happening in the story, how she wants to like it's like her way of a diet, which is not really the safest way. It's not even an appropriate way to diet. So I feel like that is kind of like a little like like I wouldn't say surprise, but just a little bit of a hint like she does want to lose weight.
And then also rich at the end, not only making it sound more like last name, but the word rich, positive, like money, wealth, you want that in diets.
Yeah. A rich diet.
Okay, so why do you think Kessa, or Francesca, whatever, is constantly tapping or saying her name to a rhythmic beat?
I would say it's because of like something to do with like her I don't know, like
OCD.
Yeah, honestly, like something to do with an OCD. They really focus on a lot of like things towards mental health. So I would think that not only would the author focus on the eating disorder, but he would focus on different things that could cause it or could lead to it, or the aftermath. So I feel like OCD is kind of like a play on to the mental illness that is talked about here.
It's just another way it shows how she's very particular about how she does things.
Self-control. A lot of self-control in this book.
Okay, so the next questions are like about theme. How do you think a theme of mental illnesses need to be taken seriously as portrayed in this book? If that makes any sense.
Yeah. When people take it as a joke, like eating disorders, like, ooh, I just want to be skinny, like one of those girls who don't eat, or I'm a depressed person, look at me, cut at my wrist. But it's so many people's everyday lives, and it just makes it worse for those people.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Adina. I feel like from my experiences from reading mental health books, it's mostly portrayed as, I would say a little bit more of like a drama instead of like an informational thing. I feel like one of the negatives downside of this book is that the author is kind of showing someone how to do it. Like, if you want self-control, like, these are some examples.
Well, the author, it's like in the first, it's like before the actual text starts, he is some kind of like psychiatrist who deals with like a specialty in eating disorders. And I thought like the theme of mental illnesses, how like they're not a joke. When she was like admitted to the hospital, she like almost died one night, and they were gonna hook up an IV so that she could get like nutrients, whatever. And she was so concerned about gaining weight. She was like, "Oh, is this gonna make me fat?" When they weren't. Like, she's not even eating. It was just like nutrients in like a liquid form.
Like in any that is part of like an eating disorder. It's like like I feel like in the hospital you could kind of see like how she was really afraid and like how she didn't really feel like she had much of self-control. And since they're not even giving her a choice, I feel like that kind of like drove her a little bit nuts.
Yeah. Okay, so how does this book show a theme of social media damaging young boys and girls?
Well, she keeps like in this book they always reference supermodels, and even in this outside of the book, many people always look at supermodels, and they you always see what is portrayed in the media, and you're like, oh, is it normal for me to be like this? Is it like why don't I look like that? It's like when you see a magazine, it's always just someone that's really skinny they always like put on like the title like, oh, they like revealed like they always like, especially female magazines, they always have like diet tricks or like 10 ways to be happy and stuff like that. It's just the perception that the media gives, so people buy the magazine because people are really insecure. And if you put a pretty face and then you put a clickbait title, people are gonna go for it.
I felt like a lot of it was in the beginning when she took the magazine and like cut out the clippings, like you were saying with the supermodels. Do you have anything to say?
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I have that quote saved. She lost 2 more pounds. A picture of the models she cut out of the magazine flashed through Kessa's mind. And the winner is 73 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other question for themes, what other themes did you find in the book?
This isn't totally it's somewhat a theme. I was just making lots of connections between mental illness in general and specifically eating disorders, and how society a lot of the time views them as 2 separate things.
Yeah.
And how anorexia, starving yourself, is another form of self-harm because you think you're trying to do something better for yourself, but you're just hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next questions are for figurative language. Why do you think the father uses imagery when describing Kessa as a skeleton on page 102? If you want to look at it. He said something about her looking like a skeleton.
Skeletons not only represent like being super skinny to like super skinny, but it's also death.
Yeah.
You get down to the bones, there's nothing left of you.
And I feel like that was kind of like him, like a bit of a way saying like, if you keep this up, you're like so skinny that it's like to the concern that you might not have enough of the nutrients, you might not like have that stuff. So I feel like it was kind of like like Adina said, metaphorically, it's referencing death because many people do die from eating disorders, especially anorexia.
Okay, what is the purpose of having the nurse leaving described as radiating with disapproval? This is on page 150, and I think it might not have been the nurse, it might have been like the lady who collected the food or whatever. She was talking to her how Kessa's another one of the skinnies, and Kessa described her as radiating with disapproval after she found out that she wouldn't eat.
I think she can just feel by looking at her that she's like, what is wrong with this girl? And she feels like no one understands her because you are in control of this. It's all up to you. All you have to do is eat and you'll be better. But she doesn't.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand.
Yeah, it's just like the disapproval part is that. Yeah, I would say what Adina said.
Or you put yourself in.
Yeah.
Okay, why does Kessa describe people around her using negative connotation words like cold? This is on page 146. I don't remember the exact sentence, but whenever she describes people around her, she's always talking about how they don't care whether she lives or dies, and that they're just like cold-hearted.
I mean, I feel like, especially in what mindset she is, she doesn't really see that she's really harming herself. So when people are telling her like, wow, you look so skinny and stuff like that, to her it's a compliment, but to them it's like, wow, you are super skinny, you need to get some help. And it's like, she thinks as it, like, getting some help is, oh, you should get fat. And especially in that mindset, like, you're only thinking about the negative. You're not thinking about the positive. And the only positive that you have, like, your perception of positive, is the perception of negativity to yourself, to your body. So she's just describing them as cold because she truly doesn't see what she's doing to herself.
And then I also think cold is a word she uses a lot because she's physically cold too because of the lack of food she's getting. Her immune system is messed up and she's always cold, and the word cold is on her mind.
Yep.
Okay, the next questions are about like inferences and conclusions. Why does Kessa always assume people don't care whether she lives or dies? This kind of ties back into the last question.
I would say just because of how she's perceiving herself. If you have a low self-esteem, of course you're going to think that other people don't care about you. And it's just it's a natural thing that people do have. Like, if you don't think that you're good enough, then how are you gonna believe that other people think that you're good enough?
Mental illness in general, like depression.
Yeah.
Like, from what I've experienced, I know deep down that everyone, like my family and friends, do love me, and I have friends, but then you just sit there and you can't convince yourself, even though you know it, but it doesn't feel like that, so just your brain gets so screwed up.
Yeah, it's just, mental illness plays a lot into the book, even though they don't really talk about it. The
eating disorder is
a mental illness, but like just other different versions of mental illness is just like, it's yeah, so
okay, so my next question is, why does Kessa assume that she's not putting herself into harm? And this also kind of ties into the last question because of her mental disorder, she can't tell.
Yeah, she's looking at people, she's looking at the magazine that we're not even sure that are even photoshopped or not. So she just has this perception thinking like, oh, if there has to be a way to get this skinny, there has to be a way. And she doesn't really look at like how they got there. All she's doing is the damaging way that she's doing it to herself. So yeah, it's just like she doesn't really notice. I don't even know where I was going with it. I honestly don't know.
And no matter how much weight she loses, every time in her mirror she sees something new wrong with her, like her fat. So she's just constantly like, oh, I'm not there yet. I need to keep going.
Like, the only way she will be happy, while looking through this, I was like, the only way that she's gonna be happy with herself is when she's like super skinny and she can't even hold herself up. Like, I feel like at that point it's just gonna,
okay, so my next question has to do like key ideas and motifs and key concepts. Why does Kessa always refer back to the hair beginning to grow on her stomach and the rest of her body?
Like, again, the media. We have as women, we have to be shaven. We can't have body hair. It's something that is stereotyped as manly, and I feel like it's just something that is portrayed on women. You have to be baby smooth, you have to be skinny, you have to have long hair, and she really does have the perception of the ideal magazine woman in her head. So not only does she have to be skinny, she has to be 100% like them to be happy with herself.
Yeah, and then I also see, like, in the way one, she starts at her stomach because that's where all of her attention goes. Yeah. And hair is another way for her to grow. She's not gaining weight, she's growing something.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question. One main idea I have is that mental illnesses aren't taken very seriously. So why do you think that this book talks about doctors not knowing a lot about illnesses like anorexia?
I feel like you're not gonna. It's like until you step into my shoes, you're gonna know. And yes, we may. As time goes, we are learning more about mental illness. And when did this book come out?
2000 or no, 19. Something.
Yeah, especially in the 19-somethings, they didn't really have perceptions of mental illness. Like, they really didn't even focus on that. If you like,
but keep going.
Yeah, so like in the 80s. Yeah, in the 1980s. Like, let's just say 1980s. They don't really have that much information on there. Like, we are just starting to get information about mental illness, and especially with women, it's something, yeah. 1978, so it's, at that time, there wasn't really that much research on it. They just kind of classified you as crazy and move on.
The loony then.
Yeah, the loony. Yeah, basically, and it's something that it's a sad thing, but as time goes, we are learning more about it. We are seeing what nerves and everything like in our brain, and it's just, at least we have it. At least we're lucky enough that we have a society that is starting to accept that mental illness is something that is not to joke about.
Okay. So one reoccurring image in the story is when Kessa is laying in her bed and she feels her hip bones and ribs sticking out. Why do you think the author put this image into the book, like, more than once?
Because it's showing, like, how skinny she is. Because most people, they have, like, some body fat. So, like, there's things between their bones and skin. But, like, when you think of a malnourished child who hasn't eaten, you think, oh no, poor them, you can see their bones through their skin. And she's purposely doing it to herself and doesn't see how bad it is. But it's also showing she's skinny.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so the last questions are on the point of view. Why do you think people suffering from anorexia nervosa see themselves as healthy when they physically aren't? This is kind of like how Kessa views herself. A lot of the time in the story, she thinks that she's perfectly fine.
They focus on how they look and not like how they feel.
I think they also go, well, you say I'm being healthy, not eating, but at least I'm not eating a bunch of like McDonald's and ice cream because that's unhealthy. Exercising is good for you. So.
Yeah, and it's like we have this perception of. I'm just gonna add on more to Adina's is that we have this perception of like just being unhealthy, which is junk food and stuff like that. But we never really classify working out as unhealthy until it gets to the point where the main protagonist has gotten.
Okay, so the last question is, why do you think Kessa is always making puzzles out of daily life? And one of the examples that I put down was from the coffee shop menu. It talked about her, like, dividing the meals into calories, and, like, the prices, and she was constantly doing this throughout the book. So why do you think that she is doing that?
Again, I'm a psychiatrist sometimes when I want to be, and I say, OCD, look at her, she's so specific, everything needs to be a certain way, but like, especially when she says she cuts up her food, I guess it makes it more manageable for her. She doesn't have to look at it as one giant chunk, it's one little piece at a time.
Also there's this thing that the more you cut it into, the more you eat, but you don't actually eat it. So your body is thinking that it's eating a lot because you keep on like putting a lot, but it's actually just a mind trick, I guess. It's also a mind trick that many people who have anorexia do, is just cut it up into pieces, eat it, and it's perceiving, your brain is perceiving it as a lot.
Sounds good. Okay, so here are the quotes. I'll read them really fast. So the first one was, okay, so when you first open up the book, before you even read the actual book, the first page says, Fat and Skinny had a race all around the pillowcase. Fat fell down and broke her face. Skinny said, haha, I won the race, which actually made me cry. I hadn't even started reading the book and I was already like, I
could barely read it, if I'm honest. I could barely read it.
So, just before it even starts, it comes off as something like that. So then my first quote was on page 10 in chapter 1. And it says, she was fat, worse than that. She was a monster, a 5'4", 98-pound monster. So she just describes herself like with her weight and height, and says she's a monster because she doesn't like it. associates it with bad things. How silly people were to eat. They thought they needed food for energy, but they didn't. Energy came from will, from self-control. Anything about that?
I just need to pee.
Okay, you can pee in a second.
Oh my gosh, this towel.
So yeah, self-control, I get that mindset. It's like, you don't need to eat if you tell yourself, like for me, I say all the time, oh, I'm hungry, but if I wait, pain will go away, and then I won't need to eat.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and a lot of the times she feels like she can't control anything, so I feel like a lot of it is why she isn't eating, because she can control that.
Yeah. So,
whatever.
So we will take a slight break and finish this in a minute. Bye.